Damron here. I know the depths of adrenal fatigue. I've been there a few times in my life. It's not fun. And in this video, I'm going to share with you exactly how I felt and in retrospect, why I got there in the first place. So tune into this video if you're struggling with adrenal fatigue, burnout, HPA axis dysfunction, nervous system dysfunction, whatever you want to call it, because I'm going to go through the ins and outs of my healing in this video. If you haven't hit that subscribe button yet, hit that button to be notified anytime I post new content related to women's health, hormones, or holistic health. Okay, so first we got to chat about what is adrenal fatigue. This is something that I think is misunderstood, and adrenal fatigue is actually not even a wildly accepted diagnosis in Western medicine, which is fine. I'm fine with not calling it adrenal fatigue, but the mechanisms of what's happening is definitely true. So I want you to think about it this way. Our brain is constantly scanning our environment for threats, dangers, scary stuff, things that it thinks it needs to help you with to cope with. So this system was made to get us away from being chased by bears and out of burning buildings and like really catastrophic situations. But due to the urgency culture, productivity, the hustle culture, being overwhelmed a lot, not sleeping enough, perfectionism, people pleasing, being type A, all of these things, our brain is constantly on edge, constantly producing stress chemicals. So when your brain's like, okay, I think she needs some help here, I don't think we can cope with this situation, your brain's gonna tell your adrenal glands, hey, we need some help here, so go ahead and produce some adrenaline and cortisol and some more of these stress chemicals to kind of help. So what these stress chemicals do is they come in and they alter your body's chemistry so that you can fight, flee, freeze, or fawn. So what happens is like your pupils dilate a little bit more, your heart gets more blood flow, your muscles get more oxygen and blood flow. There's parts of your brain that get shut down, like your prefrontal cortex is a part of your brain that is responsible for like logical thinking, emotional regulation, executive functioning skills. That part of your brain is not used, and more of this like lizard brain or your amygdala is the part of your brain that's running the show. So great that we have this stress response. We want this stress response for sure. But what happens is it was designed to be used and then us get adequate rest from that. So like example, if you're being chased by a bear, you get chased by the bear, hopefully have a complete resolution of that stressor. You're inside, you're safe, it's over. Your body can come down and recognize, okay, that's over, we're good, we're safe. But you can see as my examples that I shared with you of like perfectionism or people pleasing, etc., that's the lens that you're viewing your life through. So if everything has to be perfect for you to feel safe, you can see where your body would be in this state of stress way more often than it needs to be or should be, thus needing to compensate. So a few things that can happen when your body's in this stressful state way too much are almost every single cell in our body has a cortisol receptor. So things like neurotransmitters can change, so we can start to feel more irritable or anxious. And a perfect example is if you're in a burning building, you're not really going to feel very patient and calm and compassionate. You're going to be like, get me out of here, irritable, snappy, not patient, that sort of a thing. So I see that a lot from moms, and I also think that that also comes from not getting our needs met also, but that's a topic for another video. Also, things like low progesterone can start to happen, low DHEA levels, low testosterone, which can impact sex drive, energy, overall wellness, and vitality. It can affect muscle building. It can affect our periods and increase our symptoms of PMS, period irregularity, spotting, breast tenderness. We can also start to notice a lot of GI symptoms. So things like gas, bloating, diarrhea, constipation, kind of our typical run-of-the-mill like IBS type of symptoms. Those can also be due to too much exposure to these stress hormones. Other things that happen are like chronic pain can happen, like back pain, neck pain, shoulder pain, migraines. Other things that can happen are dizziness. So when your brain gets into this fight or flight response, all of this blood kind of comes from your brain into your body to alter blood flow and things like that. And that can make people feel woozy, dizzy, like they're on a boat, etc. So you can see that's not even near a comprehensive list of things that can happen, but you can see that a lot of things in our body are altered by this stress response. Over time, people also experience insomnia. If your brain doesn't feel safe enough to go to sleep, you're gonna have trouble getting into that deep sleep. You may be so exhausted that you fall asleep at the beginning of the night, but you're kind of like restless, tossing and turning. Maybe you're waking up from 1 to 3 a.m. Any of those things can start to happen. And your energy level, you guys. This is a big system that takes a ton of energy to fuel and function. And if you do it over and over and over, you're going to start eventually feeling really tired but wired, like you know deep down that you're exhausted, but you're still like just wired. And then eventually after that, you start to just get exhausted. You may notice that like your workouts are really struggling. You may notice that you wake up and feel like you need 8 more hours of sleep and you're just dragging yourself to the coffee pot, all of these things. So you can see adrenal fatigue, HP axis dysfunction, the stress response, mind-body illness, whatever you want to call it is fine, but you can see what's happening with these, like this mechanism or this pathology of what's actually occurring in our body and why it's creating these things. I want to talk about kind of why I experienced it. So I experienced it the worst when I was in my mid-20s. And to set this stage for you, I've talked about this a little bit. When I was 19 years old, I went through a ton of trauma. My dad and my best friend passed within 6 weeks of each other, both extremely shocking situations. Neither one was expected at all. And I grew up in Western Nebraska in a really like good family. Like I didn't know really hard things. I didn't know grief. I had no tools in my toolbox to deal with any of this. And to spare you the details, it was obviously very traumatic. My entire life changed overnight or within those 6 weeks pretty much, and nothing was the same anymore. And so I was in college at that point. I had just finished my freshman year of college. I was kind of a mess, and so did what every 19-year-old would do, just sort of tried to move on, tried to pick up the pieces, tried to keep conducting my life, and moved to Arizona away from my support system and all of these things. And so to set this stage, I wasn't in adrenal fatigue then. I was young and resilient and got through it okay. I definitely needed probably to go through some trauma counseling and things like that, which I didn't know. So fast forward a few years, that was when I was 19. Then when I was 25, I decided to go back to acupuncture school. And when I was in acupuncture school, when you're in an acupuncture school, everything that you can learn is applicable to your job. So you always hear like in college or, elementary, middle school, high school, whatever, that like, who cares? I don't need to learn this. I'm never going to use this. Well, when you're in like more of a trade school, like master's program, everything that I learned in Chinese medicine school, I could use in my clinic, in my practice. And so I became like this person that was just an ultra perfectionist. Like I had something to prove. I really wanted to be like the best student. I was running marathons at the time as well. I was in a new relationship and going to get engaged soon, and then did get engaged and then got married. We were planning, that phase of your life where you're planning like, what do you want your life to look like? I was going to start a business after acupuncture school. We're going to move from Arizona to Colorado. I was going to have a baby, like all of this stuff. And meanwhile, a lot of people go through all of those things and it's exciting, good changes, but I was viewing the lens of my life through perfectionism. So I had to be perfect at school. I had to have a perfect body. I had to be perfect at running. I had to be a perfect girlfriend / fiance / wife. I had to be perfect friend. I had to be a perfect daughter, a perfect sister. Like all of these things, I was putting so much pressure on myself to just be perfect. And the thing is, you guys, when you're a perfectionist, that's how your brain feels safe. So if things aren't perfect for you, that sends like danger signals to your brain, and you live your life kind of outside of your comfort zone 1,000% of the time because nothing's ever perfect. Same thing with people pleasing. Like not all the people are always going to be pleased, and there's always more to do, and there's always more that you can contribute. And so that's how you're viewing the world, that unless you're doing that, it's not safe. So also, I was under eating and marathon training, which was just an extreme physical stressor as well. I also was a personal trainer at the time, and so I was waking up to go into my training facility. I had to be there at 5 a.m. and it was about a 35-40 minute drive, and then I would go to school all day until 9 p.m. So when I explain adrenal fatigue, HPA axis dysfunction, like stress in general, I like to think about it as a reservoir. And each of these things go in the reservoir. So under eating, over exercising, not getting enough sleep, just overworking in general, over studying, perfectionism, people pleasing, being type A, putting a ton of internal pressure on ourselves. All of that just starts to pile in this stress reservoir. And so obviously over time it overflows. So over time in acupuncture school, which is really the most ironic part when you're supposed to be learning how this natural healing approach works and all of this system of complete medicine and how it's so much more balanced and aligned with everything and all of that stuff, I just continued to feel worse and worse and worse. So I was not sleeping well, absolutely exhausted, like pounding Red Bull in my car before work and school. I had chronic low back pain. Like it hurt so bad all the time. I was really fearful of that because it had impacted my ability to marathon train at that point. And I thought that was going to be the end of the world. And I had just set this stage up and eventually everything overflowed and I started having pretty much all of the symptoms. My periods were a mess. My hormones looked like I was about 45 years old. I really wasn't getting very many periods. I was having hot flashes. I was anxious and irritable as all get out, really, really depressed, weepy, like all the things, right? I had all the systems of this picture of too much exposure to stress chemicals, and I needed to learn tools to chill out, address some of like the underlying trauma that I had gone through when I was 19, also address some of the perfectionism, the people pleasing, the OCD that I was experiencing, and then also learn how to take out some of those physical stressors, which by the way, if you're somebody who's like a perfectionist, you're going to be an overachiever. That's sort of like the nature of the beast. So I think it kind of like works as a well-oiled cycle, and we need to get in there and break that cycle. So that is like why I started to experience these symptoms. And I know that, I was 25, and then when I became a mother at 27 years old, that definitely like exacerbated. I had all of this pressure on myself to have this perfect birth, and I knew logically, like whatever happened. I knew all of that, but I just still like really wanted this ideal, like this really natural, really crunchy type thing. I wanted to make sure that I was making all of the perfect decisions, like delayed cord clamping and breastfeeding and skin to skin and attachment parenting. And whether you agree with any of those things or not is beside the point. The point is all the pressure I was putting on myself to make the right choice and the perfect choice for this little being that I had brought into the world. And that also was obviously just a ton of pressure and stress for me. So that is when I started to get adrenal fatigue. It kind of was like one long thing. I feel like when I got pregnant, I was a little bit more, I had graduated school by then. I obviously wasn't marathon training. I was sleeping more. So I felt pretty good when I was pregnant with my first child. And then afterwards, it just kind of got worse and worse and worse. So, my brain just felt scared all the time. My brain felt like it was very, very unsafe. The world was, everything was like a big situation. Everything was like a fire to put out. And it was constantly just being very, very hyper vigilant and on edge all the time. My goal of this video was to give you some sort of like food for thought in where your stress is coming from, because I think a lot of us think that maybe we're stressed, but maybe we don't know how to change that. We're not empowered. And you guys, I want to remind you, it's not the stressors that are doing this. Like for me, yes, getting to the gym by 5 a.m. and doing school was a stress and it was a big thing. But if I could have had the mindset of, it's okay if you're not the best trainer, and it's okay if you get a B in school, and it's okay to take some of the pressure off. It's okay to rest more. It's okay to not study for 12 hours on your days off. It's okay to enjoy life a little bit. It's okay to sit in the discomfort of healing some of this trauma that you have. It's okay to allow yourself to make mistakes. Like, that would have made those stressors that I was going through much, much easier. Obviously, I went through wedding planning, which is also a huge source of people pleasing and things like that. So for me, yes, I had some like intense things going on just by nature, but it was definitely the perception of which I was viewing them as kind of like this all or nothing, like catastrophic type of thing that was for sure keeping my brain in this place of like very much hypervigilance, which was creating all of these stress hormones. So it took me a good amount of time to kind of like learn that and how to work through it. I first started with taking a lot of herbs and supplements, which definitely did help. And I help my own patients with this and suggest them like adaptogenic herbs, vitamins, minerals, eating really nutrient dense foods, dialing back the activity, sleeping more, getting like leisure walks in, being out in the sun and nature, which I was in Arizona. All of that stuff and all of that advice is great, but we have to start paying attention literally to like the thoughts that we're saying. What thoughts are you giving yourself? What are you telling yourself? That you're dumb, stupid, inadequate, fat, ugly if you don't do X? Or that you're fine how you are, you're beautiful, you love yourself, you're going at change from a place of love versus self-hatred. Like, there's all kinds of different things to do this, and a therapist is a really, really great way to start, I think. But I truly do believe that we can do all the herbs and supplements and, you know, lowering exercise and things like that, and they can definitely make a difference. But until we really kind of like understand what set the stage for us to feel like how we feel today and why the reason is, it's going to be very hard to heal forever. I was in a pattern of feeling a little bit better and then it like ramping back up and sort of riding a roller coaster for several years. And I will tell you, you guys, I am for sure a recovering perfectionist. I'm a recovering people pleaser. I still have those tendencies. Those are wired deep in my brain and they still come out sometimes with my house, sometimes with my business, sometimes with my children, sometimes with my body and workouts. They definitely still show their ugly head sometimes, but I am able to recognize them much faster and also recognize that they are very detrimental to me. Before, I sort of like bought into them and fed them and thought that my thoughts were true. And even though they felt maybe uncomfortable, I sort of took them at face value. Whereas now I have the tools to understand I don't think we have to believe that anymore, and this is just actually a catastrophic thought trying to protect you. It's not actually based on facts or reality. And so I have the tools now to sort of learn how to sit with some of these things, express my emotions, be okay with feeling my emotions, telling myself that they're safe, challenging the perfectionistic thoughts that I have, looking at my people pleasing and seeing like where I am on that spectrum. Is it self-serving or is it not at all self-serving and doing everything at my own demise? You have to start to like look at those cycles for yourself so that you can figure out where this came from in the first place. Because likely if you're feeling this, I would imagine that there's probably some perfectionism, people pleasing, type A, a lot of internal pressure, like those types of things that are starting to happen for you. So anyways, I hope that this helps you guys just sort of identify this. I truly, from the bottom of my heart, have been on this journey for about 15 years now and know from the bottom of my heart that this is the problem for most women and men, honestly, who are experiencing like adrenal fatigue symptoms. Men are not immune to any of these hormonal issues, chronic pain symptoms either. They experience them too. And I know from the bottom of my heart that if we can get our nervous system calmed down and prevent our brain from producing so many stress chemicals by teaching our brain that the world is safe, we're okay, we're gonna get better, whatever you need to tell yourself, that will help turn down that fear tremendously, which will help your body to turn down the stress chemicals, which then in turn helps your body to function optimally by producing the right hormones and your digestive system to work better, your neurotransmitters to work better, your mood to be in a better place, energy, sleep, all of those things to be in a better place. If you resonate with this, I would love for you to post in the comments below anything that resonated here. And if you have friends and family that could use this information or this message, please share with them as well. I would love to be a source of help for anybody who is willing to listen. If you haven't hit that button yet, hit the subscribe button to be notified anytime I post new content related to women's health, hormones, and holistic health. I will see you guys all in the next one.